Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Birmingham Bible Church Worldwide. We want to welcome everyone in this virtual space. So, good morning, greater rising, whatever it is you like to say. If you are in Birmingham, happy Magic City Classic Week to all of you who are down there having a great time. But we are just excited that you have decided to join us here on today, or either to watch the playback. You are in store for a treat. You're going to get some great information brought to you by some great speakers on this great day. And so we want you to help us get the word out about this broadcast on today. This is our very first mental health conference and not the last. But please share this information. Please share this broadcast. Please take notes so that you can refer back to those notes, especially when you need it. And so we've actually tackled certain subjects on our Winning Wednesday as pertaining to mental health awareness. We've done it before. We even tackled it a little bit on the men's conference we had. But this is the first time that we are solely dedicating all of our attention to mental health. And why is that important? We did not realize that this was World Mental Health Month. I thought it was in May. I think May is something totally different, but this is the month that the whole world likes to raise awareness of mental health issues. And so that is so important because people need to get the support they need. We need to reduce the stigma that we can't have a therapist. We need to reduce that. I think years ago, even when I was growing up, you just didn't talk about mental health. You know, if somebody mentioned it, it was because they was referring to somebody in a mental institution. But that is not the case. And so I'm so glad that even years ago, I think it was last year after COVID really came, that you had celebrities talking about it, you had sports figures talking about it. And so we're excited about the information that's going to be given on today. Each one of our speakers is going to take a few minutes to tackle a different subject pertaining to our mental health. And so if you have any questions, please place them in the chat room so that our speakers can either address them now or they will address them as you reach out to them on a personal level. And so we're going to get started here on today. And so our very first speaker is Miss Tammy. She is with TC Counseling and Consulting Services. We've been knowing her for years. She is here in the Birmingham, Alabama area. She has a team of people. She is really growing. I was looking at some of her stuff. I'm like, man, Tammy is doing it. She's got multiple locations, but we are just so glad to have her on today. And so she is going to deal with the topic, I believe, of depression. So hello, Miss Tammy.
Good morning, Lady Pam. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. You know you and Dr. Mason family, so whenever y'all call, they had to just come on to the plate.
We sure appreciate it. You always one of our favorite people. Like we know Tammy can talk about this. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I'm going to be talking about the topic of depression. So that's what I'm going to be sharing today. So let's see. Got to get to the slideshow. Begin. All right. Can we see?
Yes, that's perfect. We see it fine.
Okay. So first of all, I want to thank Birmingham Bible Church, Dr. Mason, and Lady Pam for having me. Y'all are just such a big inspiration and always come through for me. And Lady Pam, you saying you looked at my stuff. Did you see my other announcement? No, location.
I didn't see that.
New location on the east side.
I think we talked about it. You were building something the last time we talked, or getting it renovated or something.
So yeah, so I'll be having y'all to come out and bless that place like you did in 2019 for the TC Transformational Center.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put this down so I can make sure I see. All right, so I am Tammy Coffin, the owner of TC Counseling and Consulting Services. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I have several other credentials. I have over 20 years of experience working with a variety of clients, from individuals, couples, families, and groups. We have a team here of different therapists here at TC Counseling. Our focus basically is the underserved community, and we specialize with working with a lot of behavior modification, trauma, getting kids back into the home with their parents. So that's kind of a little bit about TC Counseling. So we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk about depression today. Depression basically is a mood disorder that can persist, feeling of sadness and loss of interest. I think a lot of people use the term I'm depressed, and a lot of people sometimes you just can't identify with, well, what's causing the depression? Why are you feeling this sadness? Why are you feeling this loneliness. And we heard so much about this during COVID-19 because of the social isolation. A lot of people use socializing as a way of not kind of being in that box, and they needed that interaction. So a lot of people did become depressed during that time and still are today. Um, Sometimes it can be a brain disorder. It's just your state of mind. I always talk about mindset. That's why my logo is about transforming lives, because I feel like if you change your mindset, then it definitely will transform your life and it'll make you a better person. Depression in the United States, it affects over 18 million adults, 1 in 10. So we all know 10 people. So just think about it. One person in that 10 has depression. So that's a lot of people. If you're in a room with 30, then 3 of those people can easily have depression. It is the leading cause of disability for ages 15 to 44. Some people with depression, they just can't function no matter how much they try. But what's very alarming is that a lot of people are depressed. They die of suicide every 12 minutes. I know that we have been on, we've been preparing for this since 9:30. So just think about it. That could be easily what 3 people is 10:07. They have died from suicide because of depression. So those numbers are high. They're higher than you really think. A lot of times, too, in a lot of African American communities, we haven't talked about suicide. We've shied away from it, but it's becoming a very common topic now, where a lot of us are committing suicide because of depression and feeling overwhelmed. Some major causes of depression, sometimes it's just life changes. Things may not be going the way that you feel like they should go. I know that me, myself personally, I kind of experienced a little side of depression by losing my cousin during the pandemic, because she was my closest family member. And it just made me very sad, because we grew up together. That was that was like a childhood person in my life that I socialized with as family. So, things like that can cause depression. Even get promoted, you think, oh, that's something good, but sometimes the stress of a new job can cause depression. Health issues. I mean, gosh, I don't know how many times you were on social media and you saw that someone, I should have put COVID in here, but someone has died from COVID. I mean, had COVID, not knowing how to battle that COVID, the feelings they had from that, the after effects of that. So we think about heart attacks, you just getting that diagnosis of cancer, things that could be going on with your body that can cause you to be depressed. Some people have a family history of depression, just known to know that it kind of have a lot of that chemical imbalance in your family, and it's making a lot of people in the family just feel down. And sometimes too, that can go from different areas to just from knowing that history of what you need to do to make sure that you're managing your depression. Certain medications can cause depression. A lot of times people get on medication. I watch, when you watch those infomercials about commercials, and they talk about, well, if you take this symptom, it may cause a whole list of issues. And I always say, well, dog, should you even take the medicine? Because sometimes the after effects may be worse than what you're dealing with. So you have to deal with that. So yeah, my leg is hurt, but now my eye may fall out from this medication, So you just have all these issues of, oh man, do I want my leg to hurt, or do I want to be blind? So sometimes you have to look at those things, and you have to see, well, what's going to be best to get me stable. Some people use alcohol and drugs, which, basically that worsens your depression. And then sometimes you can just occur for no reason. Sometimes people just don't know why they feel like that. Why do you feel sad? I never forget, I was sitting there with one of my clients, and I said, well, what's causing you to feel this way? She said, well, that's why I'm here to see you. I said, well, I can't tell you why you feel this way if you can't tell me your symptoms, So sometimes people just don't know why they're feeling depressed, why they're feeling overwhelmed, and it's one of those things where you have to kind of just try to do that timeline and figure out, well, what happened on Monday to make me feel this way on Friday that makes me feel like I no longer want to be here. I no longer have family support. What's making me feel this way? And sometimes that, you have to do some deep soul searching and realize that from Monday to Friday, something happened between Tuesday and Thursday to make you feel that way. And sometimes we've been living with things so long that we just feel like it's a normal feeling and emotion. And once we realize that, hey, this is what's causing me to feel this way, then maybe I need to do something about it. Sometimes those symptoms can you just feel hopelessness. You just feel like life doesn't matter. Don't have an interest in anything. You hear people just run around, used to be vibrant people, love other people, going out, but now they just don't want to do anything. No energy, hard concentrating, just hard to sleep, low appetite. Some people overeat, just thoughts of death, just no longer want to be here. And you try to convince people and you say, hey, you have something to live for. But at that moment, if they feel like they don't, they have to realize that I do have something to live for. I do have my kids. I do have this. You have to get them to see the good things in life. And when a person is depressed, sometimes it's hard to get them to see that because their mindset is on right now. Sometimes just those empty feelings can just lead to you just not want to be here. Just don't enjoy anything anymore. You don't want to be with your friends. You don't want to be with your family. You have all this sense of blame and guilt, loss of self-esteem, crying spells. Symptoms vary from person to person because sometimes, depression can look like, well, this person is an overachiever. They're steady going, but when they get home at night, they're crying every day. So just because they're not laying in the bed doesn't mean they're not depressed. Some people mask it very well. You hear all the time, especially you think about the celebrities out talking about it. You think about the roles they played in and who they supposedly are, but they're human. So they may be out in the world as one person, but when the door closed, who are they? Who are they? Who are they then? What are they dealing with? Because at the end of the day, we all are human. We all have feelings. We all have emotions. And, I always ask my clients, especially my little kids, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be? A lot of times, they say all these different little things, but the number one answer you get us a lot of time is money. If I had more money, I'd be happy. And I have to tell them that doesn't cause happiness. You still could be depressed. You still could be bipolar. You still could be dealing with postpartum depression. You still could be dealing with anxiety. So sometimes our sense of reality makes us feel like if we had certain things, we wouldn't have these emotions. And what we have to realize is that our feelings are valid and that when you're feeling these feelings, you have to know how to deal with them. Some physical complaints of depression. A lot of people, like I was saying, just kind of lay around, don't do anything, neglect responsibilities. Sometimes you'll see people that, normally kind of keeping themselves up. Their appearance may look a little different. They just can't remember anything, can't concentrate, suicidal thoughts, difficult making decisions. Those are some of the physical complaints. Some of the types of depression, major depression, bipolar depression, seasonal affective depression, postpartum depression. So with major depression, this type causes symptoms that, they can begin suddenly, or possibly triggered by loss, crisis, or change, interfere with normal functioning, trouble getting to sleep or feeling sleepy during the day, continue for months or years. It is more common for episodes to be long lasting or to occur several times during a person's life. So these people probably are the people that are really, really down, really missing days from work, not interacting at all. Sometimes of these people. Bipolar depression. This was alarming when I read about this. Bipolar disorder affects 2.6% of the U.S. adult population, or 6.3 million people. That's a lot of people. I know we use that word termly. You must be bipolar because you have ups and downs. We use it loosely, but at the end of the day, it's a real thing. Some people have the imbalance where that one minute, they're nice to you, the next minute they don't even want to be bothered with you. It can start in early teens, early adulthoods, but adults sometimes get diagnosed with bipolar, and it can last a lifetime. Sometimes, people do medication for these things, but at the end of the day, you still have that disorder. Seasonal affective depression. We're gonna see this a lot because when the season change, it's not light as long as it is. So we're gonna start seeing this because your body has to adjust to the fall, to here it is dark at 4 o'clock in the daytime when it's normally not dark at 8 o'clock. So sometimes you do have effects from that. Postpartum is common with women who have given birth. You hear that a lot. You think, well, they have a baby, they should be happy, but sometimes women body goes through different changes to cause postpartum. So some treatment for depression, medication. A lot of times we don't want medication because, like I was saying, sometimes of the other side effects, but sometimes you need a little something to kind of get you balanced. That's kind of what I tell my clients. They're like, well, I don't want to do medication. Well, if you've tried all these things, sometimes you need a little something to get you balanced. It can ease the symptoms, can help you return to normal. Sometimes you have to change medications too. You can't, sometimes it may be too strong or may not be strong enough. But, at the end of the day, it's not a habit forming. You can just do it to make you feel better. Psychotherapy counseling, just discussing how you feel. Let somebody understand what you're going through. It can be interpersonal to work on your relationship or cognitive behavior to help you change your thinking. Because counseling is important too. It's an important piece of the puzzle because this person is a non-judgmental person and you can tell them anything and it's going to be confidential. Some strategies for coping with depression. You got to think positive, because sometimes let's replace these negative thoughts of how I'm feeling to make me feel better. Sometimes deep breathing, meditation can help you feel better. Getting rest can help you feel better. Exercising can help you feel better. Doing a well-balanced diet. Limiting screen time on social media. I have some clients that we talk about social media, how sometimes they look at a family, a wife, a husband, and a child, and they feel like that makes them depressed because they may not have that. So when I have to tell them, I always make this little joke, but I said, does everybody post everything that's bad? No. I said a lot of those people that are posted, they may be the main ones in here on my couch that don't even like each other. So sometimes you have to realize what's real, what's not real. And just because that's their life doesn't mean that it can't be your life and it can't be better. So just, being mindful of that. You got to learn how to relax and recharge. Set aside time for yourself. Keep a routine. That helps with your depression, helps with your anxiety, helps with your mental health. You got to keep calm and let's pray together. You got to use your spiritual life for support. That's very important. And Pam, you said what I was going to say at the end. It's okay to have Jesus and a therapist too, because that's very important. When I get people, especially people that come to me, a lot of times they're like, I've been praying about this and it hasn't changed. And I was like, well, it's okay. It's okay for us to talk about it because sometimes you need someone right there to give you some tools and strategies to help you. All right. And then I had questions and answer. So if you'd like to reach out to TC Counseling, we can be reached at 205-224-4387. Our website is www.tccounselingservices.com, or you can email us at tc@tccounselingservices.com.
Awesome, Tammy. That was very in-depth. You talked about so many things, just kind of what depression looks like. And you're right, it looks different for everyone, for adults, for children. And I think, like you said, during COVID-19, I think it really just kind of put the spotlight on it because, like you said, we were now in the home with our family like 24/7. And so a lot of us were trying to adjust to that with all the kids being home and the spouses being home and everybody trying to work from home, go to school from home. And so it really limited the interaction that we can get from others. We a lot of us did Zoom or what have you, but it wasn't the same. But you did, I mean, this was awesome. The strategies, how some people need medication. I remember last year my grandmother passed, and I've never been a person who's been, depressed or whatever, and I've all of a sudden I couldn't sleep, and I'm just thinking it's just normal. And a family member said, why don't you ask your doctor for something to help you sleep? And I said, what? And so I called her and she said, yeah, that's normal. And it was something short term, but like you said, those life changes. And I don't have to take it anymore, but still those life changes, sometimes you may need something chemically to help if there's something going on that's an imbalance. So that was awesome, Tammy. Thank you for sharing that great information. We appreciate it. Can you just tell our viewers one more time how they can contact you for an appointment? I know we referred several people to you already.
Yeah, we can be, our agency is TC Counseling Consulting Services. We're located here in Birmingham, and do in-person appointments. We do telehealth appointments, and we can be reached at 205-224-4387 or www.tccounselingservices.com for more information.
Great. Awesome. So don't forget, she does in person and she also does virtual appointments, telehealth. So no excuse. You can get, and she does take insurance. So you can get with her on that as well. So thank you so much, Tammy. We appreciate it. All right, and next we have Mr. Demario Overstreet. I actually met him through a mutual friend, and so we connected. He seems like a really great guy. I'm gonna let him give you his information, his bio. But I was teasing him earlier because he has degrees in psychology from Alabama A&M. So I was teasing him about the classic, and so all of you who are Alabama A&M fans, this your peeps on right now, so you need to make sure you listen to him. And so he has done a lot of work, just reading his bio, just with Black men, with people suffering from drug and alcohol addiction. I think he's done group counseling. Right now, he is doing a postdoctoral research fellow at Harvard Medical School, at Brigham and Women's Hospital. So that's a long title. I'm gonna let him just kind of give you his experience, and then he is going to talk about the subject of anxiety. So hello, Demario, Dr. Overstreet.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on today. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you can go ahead with your presentation as well.
Okay. I completed my bachelor's and master's at Alabama A&M University in clinical and counseling psychology. I went on to pursue my PhD endeavors at UAB. I majored in behavioral neuroscience. So I'm here now doing my postdoctoral fellowship in anesthesiology at Harvard School of Medicine and Brigham and Women's Hospital.
Awesome.
Thank
So
you.
you're gonna move back south when you get through with your fellowship?
It depends on how bad this first winter is.
I got you.
So I'm in cold Boston right now, for those who don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
chilly.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, talk to us about the subject of anxiety, which is
Okay,
probably what a lot of us are also experiencing right now with COVID and everything that's going on. Even me and my husband talk all the time about these situations, like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all those, and sometimes that has created anxiety too. And so yes, please go ahead and tell us about anxiety.
Give me 1 second to set up my screen. Can you all see anything?
Yes. Make sure. So, yep, we see it. It's perfect.
All right. So I've given you a little bit of information about my background, both in psychology and now in neuroscience. So I just want to talk a little bit about, very briefly, anxiety and you. And I entitled this presentation this way for a reason. First things first, as I navigate through this presentation, I would like for you to keep in mind this one question. You don't have to answer it now. Think about it throughout the presentation, and then again, once we finish the presentation. What is your relationship with anxiety? So with that question in mind, think about these next few slides. What is anxiety? Well, anxiety is the body's natural response to stress. It's typically characterized by a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease. Right. About an imminent event or future situation with an uncertain outcome. Often we spend time ruminating on things that we have absolutely no control over. That contributes substantially to anxiety. How does anxiety feel? What are some physical or physiological symptoms of anxiety? You may notice that when you're anxious, you experience one or a combination of the following symptoms: strong, fast, or irregular heartbeat, dizziness, tiredness, you're just extremely fatigued, trembling or shaking, excessive sweating, shortness of breath, stomach ache, a difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, insomnia. And some of these, as Tammy mentioned, will present in depression as well. Right. But my question now is anxiety always negative? And the short answer to that question is no. There's actually a healthy level of anxiety. Good stress is known as eustress, right? And it's the moderate or normal psychological stress interpreted as being beneficial to the person who experiences it, right? This type of stress causes you to be motivated and excited about life. So again, what's your relationship with anxiety? Are you experiencing eustress or is it distress? What are some examples of this eustress that I'm speaking of? Giving a presentation, like right now, an exam or a test, a first date, all right? The anticipation of these events could bring about some anxiety. However, if your relationship with anxiety is good, if you're giving a presentation, you may prepare better. You may practice more. If you're taking an exam, you may study more. If you're going on a first date, hopefully this will encourage you to take a shower, dress nice so that you can impress the person that's sitting across from you at the table. So that's eustress, and these are some of the examples of eustress. When is anxiety considered a mental health concern though? When is it clinical? So we deem most mental health conditions to be clinical when they drastically impact your daily life or ability to function. Anxiety is clinical when it becomes overwhelming and unmanageable, and it appears unexpectedly and frequently throughout your day. What are some ways to manage anxiety? One way is to learn more about anxiety in order to better address it. Relaxation techniques help quite a bit. Correct breathing techniques. Counseling is extremely important if you're experiencing anxiety at levels beyond what's deemed to be healthy. If it's no longer benefiting you and causing and like drastically impacting your day, counseling may be a great option for you. Dietary adjustments, again, as Tammy mentioned, but specifically, in addition to establishing a healthy diet, you also want to limit or avoid alcohol and caffeine when you're feeling anxious. Exercise is extremely important, and creating a healthy sort of schedule for yourself, and a healthy exercise or workout routine is extremely important as well, especially if you're going to do this in the morning. It helps you set the pace for the rest of your day. And in situations where your anxiety is a clinical issue, medication, and I always, Tammy, you correct me if I'm wrong, but medication in combination with counseling and therapy is extremely important. There is no such thing as a magic pill. So you will have to do some work. I encourage everyone, if you're interested in, if you think medication is an option for you, also always consider therapy in combination with this treatment. All right. So again, I ask, what is your relationship with anxiety? Is it eustress that you're experiencing, that good stress that motivates you and forces you to be better every day, helps you prepare more, and helps you enjoy life, encourages you to go out and to do new things? But my question to you right now is, what can you do today to better manage your anxiety and improve your mental health? I just want to thank you all so much for listening to me, and I hope you have a really great weekend. This is my contact information if anyone's interested. Feel free to reach out if you'd like to discuss any of these topics further, or if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Demario. Let me ask you a question, and Tammy, any one of y'all can answer this. Some people have, triggers that may cause anxiety that may be outside of, a presentation. Maybe it's a parent that causes anxiety, or maybe it's that job they're going to. Are there some things that people can do? Because for some people, maybe they cannot associate with their parent as much, or when they do associate with them, what are some things they should say? Or if they have this boss that just causes anxiety, and it's nothing that the person did, it wasn't like they're coming into work late all the time or something. Are there some things that they can do to kind of help with anxiety when dealing with someone face to face? You got anything like that?
Yeah. So off the top of my head, one thing that I think is really important is to not keep those emotions bottled in. I think that it's really important in situations. So I always tell people there are very few things in life that we actually have control over, but you also can't let them have that much control over you. I think counseling is a really great option for someone experiencing something like that they can't control. I think writing, journaling helps a lot, and also having a conversation with that person that's bothering you to at least communicate what your issues are. Often the other person doesn't know unless you make that clear. And I think that when you do, if you're in a situation where you have to constantly be in contact with this person, that's one reason that counseling is so helpful. You no longer have to carry those negative feelings and burdens around with you. You have some place to breathe and let those out. Tammy, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you on that, and also gives you opportunity to role play some things that you can say to that person in an appropriate manner, because when your emotions take over, you never know what you may say. So it gives you opportunities to build up the courage to be able to say, identify how I feel, because it's about how I feel, not putting the blame on how you make me feel. It's about how I feel. And sometimes people receive it more when you're expressing yourself, because you're letting them know how I feel. Communication styles are important too with expressing yourself, because you got to know if that person is a great aggressive communicator, or, and if you passive and they're aggressive, then you may not get that I feeling out, so just be able to talk about those type of things are very important. I love journaling. I give my clients journals all the time. Then some people don't like to physically write. I tell them, use your phone, put the notes in your phone, because now with technology, a lot of things you can do, a lot of apps for that too. Meditation, just having that quiet moment to check in with yourself. And when you mentioned job, Ms. Pam, I'll be transparent. I thought about me working at the school, and I knew it was time for me to leave when I started having those feelings of anxiety of pulling up somewhere I no longer was happy.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that conversation that you had with us, and you told us about that, and you're right. So that's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes anxiety is a way to get you into your purpose of what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think about that all the time. I said, 3 years later, if I would have been disobedient and stayed there, I wouldn't even be able to say my testimony of the things that God has done for me. But I had to get that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing what was wrong with me. Some of those things I talked about in depression, not knowing what was wrong with me. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling sad? I love my job. I had to get that uncomfortable feeling to the point of it became so unbearable. I knew I was not living in my purpose anymore.
Well, thank y'all. Those are great tips. Those are great tips. Thank y'all so much. Awesome information. Demario, just share with us one more time how people can contact you on Twitter. Because people who are watching, you can contact them directly if you want more information, if you need some additional help, if you want to schedule, appointments virtual or in person. So tell us one more time on Twitter how people can contact you.
Sure. Yeah. So Dr. Overstreet 06.
06.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Dr. Overstreet 06. We got it. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
last but not least, we have Dr. Lawrence Murray. He has been with us before. He is assistant professor of psychology at Langston University. He is very active in the practice of clinical therapy and psychological research. So we have had him on here before. Such a pleasure to meet with him and to talk to him again. And Dr. Murray is going to help those of you who are living with someone or know someone who has a mental disorder. He's going to help us how to navigate being around them. And so, hello, Dr. Murray.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Thank you again for joining us today. You can briefly tell people a little bit about yourself as well before you get started.
Absolutely. Dr. Lawrence Murray, originally from Los Angeles, California, moved to Oklahoma in 2005. And interesting migration here was at UCLA, there in their neuropsychological institute there doing research, and was called here because of a former CFO at Pepperdine University became the president of a smaller college here. And so here I am and came to serve. I've been teaching now for over 20 years, I believe. That's a little scary. And like Ms. Coffin, I operate Dr. Murray's mental health and consultation services. And so we're grateful for that. And as you can see, I don't know if you know, I'm here at the university now, committed to Saturdays. I have some students, some of my research students outside my office here. I've told them if they come on camera, I'm gonna bust them up. But I'm here committed to Langston University with our students here, and just excited to be here. And of course, Lady Pam, also excited to be with you. And I'm extremely honored to be with Dr. Overstreet and Ms. Coffin. So this is awesome. And I have the tie-in of talking about loving someone with a mental disorder. And my colleagues before me so wisely stated some things that I don't have to do a lot of work in terms of just establishing things other than just giving you a frame of where I'm going just to get to how to love someone. And I think because my PhD is in clinical psychology, and like Dr. Overstreet, just very wedded to the clinical processes, and in particular the neuroscience, the brain and behavior, that central nervous system that ties us to what we do. But I want to step out of that before we even talk about how to love someone with a mental illness. Just look at some definitions that I regularly use. If we want to define it, there's so many definitions that can help us, but a person will just have clinically significant behavioral problems. I usually look at that according to the DSM-5. That's kind of what I'm referring to. And so there is a prevalence in etiology and of course, a length of symptoms that they have to have for a certain amount of months. Of course, as we've heard through the great presentation of depression and anxiety, it's distressing, and that distress causes pain. Of course, I'll run through this very quickly. Dr. Overstreet mentioned it impairs your functioning, your overall I would call it a GAF, my global assessment of functioning. Usually there's a number for that person that has a disorder, and they used to show up to work, now they don't. They used to be very productive and other things, now they aren't. And then, of course, if we look at mental illness, before we can even love them, I am a proponent of this multi-path perspective that I think all clinical persons are, where we have to look at every individual through the biological, psychological, social, and sociocultural dimensions, you know. I'm very wedded to the biological processes because I enjoy that. When we start talking about neurotransmitter substances and what they do and naturally do, and then how people can exacerbate them or mimic them or things of that nature, I'm into that. And that's, and I have students laughing out there now. I'm so into that. I gravitate to that. But then I have to obey what the other professionals on our call, Lady Pam, will purport to, and that is the psychological, social, and sociocultural, where this comprises of this person that has been diagnosed with a disorder. And so looking at all of this is I think, in a sense, enough to keep a person busy in terms of looking at them as a whole person. But one of the things I wanted to say is not to be confused with weakness of character. And there are ways that we can normalize a mental illness, but I'll refrain from that. Just let's look at the facts about it. It has nothing to do with intelligence. Very quickly, can happen to anyone. Very quickly, chronic but not contagious, and that has to really to do. Again, I'm gonna talk about love, Lady Pam, but again, it has to do with the idea that no one wants to be around you, and there is work in dealing with those that are mentally ill. But then in many cases, and I know the other professionals on the call will definitely add into this. So it's difficult to diagnose and treat, especially when that person is a kaleidoscope of things. And it's one thing to put them on 5 axes in terms of what we would do to assess them and to write out the implications. But it's another thing to, there could be some comorbidity issues and dual diagnosis issues. And like our colleagues just talked about, they can have both anxiety and depression. I think they kind of coexist at the same time in many instances. And so again, that's there. It can be treated. The mentally ill are not dangerous. And should not be confused with terms like psychopath or sociopath. And so, but let me get to, and I'll put them all here and talk about them each, what my assignment really is. And I think it's important because I know we're people of the spirit. And one of the overarching calls that I have, I'm not even ashamed of it, even here at Langston University, and of course with my brothers and sisters on the call, is that the Apostle Paul calls us to walk in love. I really need to say that because I'm dealing with, how do you love someone with mental illness? And then I cannot assume that everyone is going to apply the same kind of love that a child of God would. I hope y'all understand where I'm going with that in terms of what love means to certain people. But I do believe that what we have here, and what I want to go through very quickly, is literally how to understand or provide support for someone who's suffering from mental illness. It can already be overwhelming. We learned it can be emotionally exhausting. And so we need to know a level of support. And so here we are. Here's some quick insights that I believe we can level your love in mental health. You got to level it. And there are levels to it. If Pastor James Mason was preaching, he would talk about Sturge love and agape love, and he would break it down and phileo and all those derivatives of love. But and we're not opposite from that. But not everyone's going to walk in that agape love. So if we level our love and mental health, one of the first things we got to do is embrace empathy and validation. So how do you love someone with a mental illness? We live in a society where empathy is often doled out on a competitive level. You know, we could feel bad for a person as long as their circumstances are the worst we've heard today. You know, we can appreciate the struggle as long as it didn't easily overcome something similar, you know, in our lives. And in reality, empathy and validation it wasn't designated to work that way. You know, sometimes empathy sounds like this, and here it is. I don't know how to help you, but I'm sorry you're hurting. And I have to mention that sometimes in the faith community, we can have that kind of veneer or spirit, right? If I can apply it there. And, you know, we can have a lot of trouble, but then we will parallel it and say, well, at least you have a roof over your head. And so when we empathize with the people in our lives without needing to hold their circumstances up against ours or anyone else's, then we will lessen the chance that our loved ones feel alone in their pain, you know. So, you know, I'll get to something else. Look, validation is simply the acknowledgement that a person has a feeling. So this goes beyond saying my loved one or the church, someone in the church ministry, someone on my job has a mental disorder. It's literally validating them that they feel that way. You know, man, I understand that you're angry right now. I've been angry. I understand that you have anxious moments right now. You may not understand the whole scope of it, but allowing that person that has this mental disorder to see that we acknowledge what they're feeling can give them the freedom to accept that feeling and kind of move on without allowing that feeling to create a barrier. I hope you understand that. And if I move further, avoid saying things like do better or even don't say try harder. Now, and let me qualify that because, you know, if you have an asthma attack, what they're going to say, try harder at breathing. You're not going to do that. It would be ineffective. It'd be unsafe. But when it comes to matters of the brain, Dr. Overstreet, we have, I'm going to just say this, we have adopted the sentiment that grit will get us through. And I just informed you, you know, I'm kind of wedded to the biological process. And some people with mental disorders, and I'll get to it later, you see it on there, educating yourself. But you have to stay away from the sentiment that, you know, you'll get through. Just develop the grit. Now, that's flawed logic, and your loved one's mind or the person that has a disorder, their mind is valuable and vital to controlling their ability to get well. So that's kind of the rationale where I'm coming to. So when someone's having an asthma attack, since I use that, or they can't breathe, you know, we act fast, we give them the medication they need. Sometimes we give them adequate time to breathe, and we give them space, don't we? Well, mental illnesses are scientific, physiological illnesses that need to be treated in such a way for wellness to be achieved. And so it's very critical that you don't put upon their shoulder or anyone's shoulder the do better or try harder concept, because then you're telling their brain to get grit. And sometimes those things are, if I can say, dopaminergic. And I don't want to start mentioning all of that we avoid because we're faith people. Let me just say that. in Lady Pam, you mentioned it in praying. So again, we have to obey our bodies, even the mind. And then educate yourself. So educate yourself about the symptoms. Each mental illness, like all illnesses, and in my estimation, in my DSM that I use weekly almost, is 250 categories in there of mental disorders. And so, we don't want to start mentioning and cataloging and chronicling disorders that, I think the two that we've heard are the top, especially since now most of my clientele are Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine service women and men for PTSD and other things like that. But each mental illness, like all illnesses, has its own specific set of symptoms that manifests in seasons of struggle. So you heard the seasonal affective disorder. My brother lives, Miss Coffin, in Portland, Oregon. It's always gray and raining out there, and in many cases overcast. And so you're right about that seasonal affective disorder. But what's so interesting about it, even a person, Dr. Overstreet, with an anxiety disorder may have difficulty concentrating, or feeling fatigue or restless or irritability. And even those with PTSD have a hard time staying present or having negative changes in their current belief system. And so one of the last things you want to do is not know about the symptomology. In particular, anxiety, the triggers. I've been in classes and have seen panic attacks come. I've seen because, the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems are undeniable. That's physiological. And so the sweat, of course, you can't see heart palpitations, but you certainly, and Dr. Overstreet, I'm sure you know this, you certainly understand what's happening in that limbic system and those types of things. And so the average person, though, as I hasten to move forward, needs to be understood. And so educating yourself about the symptoms and not falling into the African-American stigmata of mental disorders should be what an individual should do. And then in conjunction with that, so I can move forward, is research a lot of treatment options. And once we've faced the reality that you have a friend, loved one, or whoever it is with a mental disorder, research the symptoms. We talked about depression today, and if we can just stay on topic, you notice they can't get out of bed, and you don't want to take things like that personally. They don't love us anymore. Don't take it personal. Is another idea. So research the treatment options, right? There are a myriad of treatment options for people suffering from mental illness. We've heard medication. I'm a strong proponent of medication and psychotherapy. That's the very reason why the medication will do one thing, but you need a therapist who's competent for the thinking errors that can occur as the drug biodistributes. And it does have to biodistribute, and that's a different process. And then a lot of people, there's a lot of self-medication in conjunction with being medicated, and that's another topic altogether. So you should not, integrate certain types of street derivatives and things of that nature. And then if there are, in the work that I try to do, even with the families that our consortium treats, we try to provide this wraparound therapy. And so it's not just the sufferer, but it can be the family. And the family understands triggers and things of that nature. And then, Christians need to meditate. I'm gonna say this and step on, something, we can't meditate. And it's transcendental meditation, it's Eastern philosophy. No, and this is not that's error biblically. But we are supposed to be meditative people. We're supposed to be mindset people, you know, and as people of faith, if we're going that level, the scriptures are replete with mindset stuff. And then moving forward to end, don't set a timetable. There's no magic time frame for wholeness. There's just not. Certain mental illnesses ebb and flow for many years, you know. And so believing that that person will be better in a few weeks or months is a setup for hardship. It's a setup for hardship. And when they move forward and then when they regress, when they have victory stumbling blocks, developing new coping mechanisms, new seasons and things of that nature, we have to let go of our idealized timetables. And so in families, sometimes we want our loved one to get better, and this doesn't happen on our timetable. And then lastly, we just need to encourage outside support. So community, congregational, and professional support. If you know, I would go to Dr. Coffin's LLC in Alabama because it's a community of support. And one of the first things I hear, and only met her today, is that they're going to create a safe place for you. And so part of that for especially the African American community is making sure that person feels safe. Having social support is big in the research on many levels if we're going to love better. And then the last thing, just remember that people with mental illnesses are not subtly different people because they're sick or they've been diagnosed. When they're struggling, they're not extraordinary or monsterish and all of that kind of thing, but circumstances have changed, but they're the same person that you've always loved, but you have to love them in more context. Thank you so much. My contact information is before you. Several emails because those are the universities that I serve, and there's my number there, 405-922-8911. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Murray. Wonderful presentation, great tips. Let me ask you something, because I know there are family members who, you know, they want to help, you know, they really want to help their loved one. And how can they help without being intrusive? So I was thinking of an example of, you know, maybe someone whose family member is depressed. And so the first thing they probably want to do is, hey, come on, let's go here or let's go there. And I don't know, the loved one could be like, I don't want to go, leave me alone. How can we help our loved one without being just pushy, if that's
Yeah.
a lack of a better word?
Wow. Tammy landed on it earlier. Sometimes they're in a context where that anhedonia, they're unable to express joy.
Yeah.
And sometimes the loved one feels joyful, they're up, they're exuberant, and they get incredibly affronted when the other person doesn't feel that way, and they can't push them up to their status. And so there needs to be, you don't need to be a Debbie Downer, but at the same time, you need to understand that person's down. And once you actively listen, and Dr. Coffin, you may have more to say about this, but once you actively listen and give them that safe place, that's what that person needs. They don't want to even get out of bed at all. And so they want you to be right there with them in that here and now. And that's what I would say with that, rather than pushing them to your level of joy or exuberance.
And sometimes people do just want to be heard. Like I said, just to know that their feelings are valid. Because if I'm up here, everything's going good, you know, I have a good job, I have money, I have this and I have that, you know, I feel like life is great. But the other person, you know, they may have gotten their notice that they're getting ready to be evicted. They don't know where they're going to live, where their kids are going to be able to stay and finish out the school year. Then life is not great for them, but they may want to share that information with someone that they trust without judgment and just need somebody to listen.
I agree with you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry, Dr. Overstreet. I was going to say, by way of transparency, when my brother died in 2013, you know, now I see a therapist as a clinician, so I don't want to hide that. But one of the things I did, you all, because I happened to preach the gospel, I kind of fell back on, hey, I do funerals, I know about death, and so on and so forth. And Tammy, one of the very things I did was I went down. And what was so interesting is that you can know all of the information, you can have all of the skills and clinical skills and all of that, but then you still need to be in front of that person that's competent, and like you said, that's really going to hear you. Once you're heard, man, that creates that ease. That's all I was going to say. Sorry, Dr. Overstreet.
No. I was actually just going to substantiate the same thing that you two were both saying about sometimes the person just wants to be heard. You two both understand completely how important making sure that sort of like the Rogerian thought process of therapy works. Therapy is patient-centered, right? And I think it's important to have those conversations to ensure that you are benefiting that person in the way that they want to be benefited. You're listening to them, they do feel heard, and that they're guiding their own progress. That's extremely important. Often, like, we negate what they need and we immediately start, providing them with information from from like something we may have read off the internet, or we've talked to someone else, but still you never considered what this person needed. So, and I think that point ties in both what Dr. Murray was saying and Ms. Kaufman. It's really important to speak with them to ensure that you are providing them with the information and the help that they need. Also, that you're validating their experience. Dr. Murray, you spoke a lot about invalidating the experience of someone you love who has a mental disorder. I do have a quick question for you, because I do think that that's an important point. What I would like to ask you is, what is the negative aspect, the downside of invalidating the experience of someone you love with a mental disorder?
It further, in my opinion, it puts them further in that condition. In particular, you both mentioned it, the cognitive distortion aspect, and you may have to wax eloquently on that, but I've experienced where if you invalidate it, they're going to go further into that cognitive distortion belief set that I'm nothing, and then what I have is not important to other people in terms of listening. That's how I would answer that, I think,
Because I thought about it, your comment of that statement, you need to do better. Like that's part of that. When that child is acting up at school and you don't know why, and the parent comes up, well, you need to do better. You know what you're supposed to do, but what is causing that behavior? And so when you do have that mental illness, I may not know that I'm, as a kid say, I don't know if they still say it now, spasm out, or wherever they used to say, call it, that I'm in a whole nother world and that I just acted out on you. And I'm getting told I need to do better. Well, what is really wrong?
And that brain logs that. It's like, we'll think that way on this call, but then others need to know the brain is always learning and it adapts those changes, whatever it is, and so if a person does do that, the other person is extremely important. If I'm going to Ms. Coffin, I'm going to her services, I'm giving her that power. And so she's interacting with my brain. And that's why a person goes. That safe place is so important. But again, I'm looking at the first rung of that multi-path system. It's important that the central nerve, you're going to always trigger that central nervous system with beliefs, and then you have to consider how that person's values, their culture, what values and beliefs and things handed down are already hardwired. So anyway, just.
No, this is good. I like what y'all said about, letting the person guide their own process. Because if you're living with someone, someone, you're like, the first thing you just want to help. You want to help, and I'm trying to help you, and why won't you let me help you? And it could be just too just overbearing. And then, like you said, Dr. Murray, kind of, if you're not validating their feelings, like this is okay, or wherever, then it puts them further down into their mental illness. That's I never thought about that. I did have one question, because as a family member is trying to, help their loved one, and they're actively listening to everything that their anxieties or their depression, how does that loved one just shield themselves from exhibiting or taking on those same exact symptoms? Because if you're kind of like by association, if I'm hanging around somebody who's doing XYZ, I may start doing XYZ. So how can a loved one shield themselves from exhibiting those same symptoms? I think that was my last question. Anybody want to tackle it?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start it off. I think that it's extremely mentally taxing and exhausting sometimes to deal with a loved one who does have a mental disorder. I think that one great place to start is ensuring that you are taking care of yourself mentally, and that if you feel that therapy is a good option for you, that psychotherapy is a good option for you, then you pursue that route as well, because it's just as much a burden for a caretaker. As we know, in any sort of hospice in healthcare, it is extremely burdensome for someone who's a caretaker, just as much as it is someone who's afflicted. So I think, ensuring that you are taking care of your mental health, and you're receiving counseling, and they have groups for individuals who are caretakers, or, on Facebook, whether that's a Facebook group or somewhere you can go in person. I think taking those steps to ensure that you are protecting your emotional and mental health is extremely important.
And my comment to that is, self-care is not selfish, because sometimes you have to step back from the situation and realize what it's doing to you. And it doesn't mean that you don't love that person, but you got to make sure that you stay in a good place. So you got to remember self-care.
Agreed.
What they said.
You said what they said. Amen. Good. All right. Well, this was awesome, y'all. Thank y'all so much for doing this. We've been having some good comments and feedback on social media. So you all have helped someone. We're going to broadcast this particular segment later on this evening, so people can catch it. We'll do it again next week, so people can get the information. So thank y'all for your time. Viewers, please know this, that it's okay to not be okay. Sometimes things happen. Things happen in our lives. We have events, situations that come up, and so it just kind of throws us off balance. And so it is okay to have Jesus and a therapist. Dr. Murray, you talked about meditating and how some people think it's some kind of ancient Arabic thing, but Pastor Mason always says, meditate means to go over and over again. So if you want to meditate on a scripture, whatever your meditation is, you need to do that. So this was great. If you people who are watching, if you know someone who has a mental disorder, please throw them a lifeline. Be that support system for them. Let's together recognize these depressive and anxiety type disorders that are happening amongst us. And so let's make sure we're doing all we can. Of course, you know how to reach all of our viewers, all of our speakers on today. They actually gave all of their information. Thank you for joining us. Okay, and remember, we have all of our events that are listed on our website at bhimbc.org. Of of course, next on tomorrow, Pastor Mason is doing continuing the family series. It's going to talk about parenting. So viewers, make sure you are watching that. We are 8 and 11 o'clock tomorrow. So 2 times. You do not want to miss any of those messages. Next Saturday, we have Ms. Shada Spikes, who's going to talk about free scholarship money. So that's one thing, parents, you don't have to stress about. Please join us next Saturday at 12 noon. Central Standard Time. If you're interested in it, please email me, Lady Pam at tcowi.org if you would like to be a part of that. The month of November is going to be great for BHAM BC. We are celebrating several years of doing ministry. And thank y'all for supporting. Thank y'all for watching what has happened on today and all of our events. We're trying to bring forth just a lot of information to you that you can use for your life and for your living. We have a expo that's coming up in November. If you have a business that you want to showcase on our website, which is also part of a National Christian Database, please go to our website. Make sure you plug in that information in the business directory. Do that as well. We have an expo that's coming up. You can tell about your business, and we'll show that on our November 27th, which is the Small Business Saturday. So we're going to do that as well. So a lot of great things are happening. Thank you to all of our speakers on today. Thank you for joining us. To all of our viewers, we like to do this. We love doing this. We love bringing you topics that's going to encourage you, to empower you, to edify you, and that's always going to help lift you up and to make sure that we are just living our best life here on earth. So thank you so much. Thank you, Demario Overstreet. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Dr. Murray. Thank you so much for everything, for all your support, for how you came on today and just really encouraged our hearts. So any final words from any of you guys before we dismiss?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Dr. Murray, I think I would like for you to close us out in prayer, just to pray for those who are dealing with mental issues and for family members who are having to deal with them. Can you close us out in prayer?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
As we reverently bow and pray, dear God, our Father, just thank you for your grace and your mercy. Above all, Heavenly Father, for your servants, Tammy, and for your servants, Lady Pam, and for your servant Mario, and Lord, even me, just thank you. And the Father, bless them in Alabama. Bless her, Heavenly Father, her business and her consultation services. Heavenly Father, bless Tammy's family, bless Lady Pam and Pastor Pam, Heavenly Father. And then, dear God, I ask that you bless Brother Overstreet as he's in Boston and finishing his postdoc. Heavenly Father, give him everything that he needs now and in the future. Heavenly Father, bless the Van Bible Church, dear God, and just we thank you for your grace and your mercy. Now, please help a family, help loved ones, and help those who are suffering with mental illnesses, that they'll be favored. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you so much. Have a great week.